Hi guys. Oh, you guys hear me okay? Cool.
Yeah.
I guess it's a little bit too early, right? So we don't see a lot of audience here.
I know, there were more people earlier.
Okay.
I think they left as soon as we got on the stage.
All right, let's do it. Welcome to Taipei Blockchain Week. This is Ivan, the founding partner of Combactive Ventures. Essentially, we are an early stage investment firm, investing in crypto projects, blockchain startups since 2017. Still actively investing, so builders and founders, please reach out and then we can talk, right? So alongside with me, we have brilliant minds. We're gonna have a panel, a little bit like discussion today. We have Akio-san from IVC, the founding partner as well, and Richard from Jabber Dragon, managing partner of Jabber Dragon, and Alex, Shin Labs. So essentially, we are talking about something, Web3 Asia. What's the end goal? What's the difference with the Western world? So basically, we cover all the major cities in Asia. Korea, Japan, China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan for sure. So, so maybe they would do a little bit of introduction first. Each of us.
Starting from you.
Yeah, from you. I just did.
Okay.
Let's go.
Hi, I'm Akio from IVC. We are a seed-stage crypto fund that invests globally, but very heavily, of course, in Asia because we have a strong team here in Taipei. And in parallel, we also have a traditional equity VC fund called Headline, which also invests across Asia. But we have a very strong roots in Japan. So today, I'm looking forward to sharing with some of our panelists on some of the crazy and interesting things we're seeing in Japan.
Nice.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Rachel Wang from Jupiter Dragon. Myself come from Shanghai, China, of course. But my headquarters is in Silicon Valley, so we are a very typical venture capital back to Silicon Valley. We start to do the equity investment since 2006. So when the Bitcoin comes up, our big boss, Tim Draper, just try to promote Bitcoin. So he got a lot of Bitcoin in 2014, and we start to invest in blockchain area since 2015. We have a lot of portfolio like Coinbase and also Ledger. Until today, we still quite focused and also keen to the Web3 area. So that's why we are today.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Alex. I run a firm called Shin Labs. We're like a venture studio based everywhere. But previous to this, I was a consultant at Samsung Next. We did a bunch of crypto investments there. I did some consulting for Arrington Capital, which is a TechCrunch founder. And before that, I was a co-founder of a firm called Hashed. They're the largest crypto assets VC fund in Korea, San Francisco, and I think now India.
All right, thank you, Alex. So we got a few questions. The first one would be let's talk a little bit about the regulation stuff, right? So since many countries in Asia they roll out of regulations, a lot of new rules about crypto, how to regulate it, and at the same time Hong Kong is opening up, right? So what's the crypto sentiment in Asia? What has changed? I'm sure you guys have more so interesting and crazy stories. How about let's just start from Akio-san.
So I think it's interesting to talk about regulation because usually regulation doesn't come in a void. It comes often in reaction to something. And Japan was lucky enough to have two of the worst crypto fiascos in history. First, of course, everyone knows Mt. Gox, and maybe less known, but we also have, in scale, much bigger, even bigger than Mt. Gox scandal, hacking attack in another exchange called CoinCheck. And because of this, Japan, I think, was one of the earlier regimes in terms of regulating crypto exchanges, right? Because a lot of consumers got hurt, and it just really put Japan on the map. But hey, this is like the place where all the bad things in crypto happens. So as a result, Japan now has one of the toughest crypto exchange rules, but the rules are actually quite clear. And what's interesting is, everyone here probably remember the FTX blow up, a little while ago. I'm sure some of you also personally affected. But if you were FTX account holder in Japan, you were protected. Because when FTX opened up offices in Japan, they had to negotiate with the local regulators. And one of the things they had to agree in order to complete their acquisition of local exchange in Japan was that the FTX actually had to force their offshore Japanese users and move them to Japan account. And obviously, some people resisted and didn't come back, but then there's those group of people who did. And of course, there are a bunch of people who opened up FTX account in Japan to begin with. So all those people who got transferred back to Japan or started in Japan, they didn't lose anything because in Japan, crypto exchanges actually had to maintain segregated accounts, so they cannot mix things like they did elsewhere. And so as a result, everyone in Japan came out safe. So having actually experienced this, I think the Japanese regulators are now more confident that actually having regulation is better than not having anything. And now they have actually also shown that there's actually a real case of consumer protection. And I think in the last 2 years, we are actually seeing re-emergence of more progressive crypto regulations happening in Japan, and I can share some of that a little later. So I think the lesson for us is that we went through the worst pain, but out of that came something useful.
Very bullish Japan.
Yeah, definitely Japan will be very, very aggressive market later, I believe so. I guess nowadays people talking about regulation is most likely involved about the digital assets, especially for secondary market, right? Yes, of course, we see a lot of ETF, blah, 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 and was regulated. And also, I do remember just a couple of days ago, the United States FASB just defined the new accounting regulation rule for the digital assets. So for those big companies like Grayscale, blah, 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 they can have the more regulated accounting way to calculate the asset of the Bitcoin they acquire. But however, here I want to share another story. It's not just a secondary market that people look at. Even for us, we only invest primary market, right? We are a Delaware State registered venture capital firm. We also overlooked by SEC, which means that for whatever portfolio company that we invest in, we need to meet a certain regulation and compliance. That I believe most people doesn't care and doesn't know what it is, especially for venture capital. Not for those the hedge fund or whatever exchange they want to do anything, digital assets, the trading stuff on secondary market. So we just met this, the first time we met this kind of the requirement by SEC was Telegram. That's 2018. That's first time. And this year, you may know now SEC also look after a lot of projects. Some project, of course, you know, but there's quite a lot small project. You don't know the name, but SEC also look after that. But not just only look after that, also looking after those venture capital who back this project.
Really?
Yes. So you know what? Actually, we just have internal audit. We have to deliver all the email that to SEC.
That invasive.
Yes. So this is one story. I just happened, and also myself. So I do know the things. So of course, people talking about those regulations, secondary market assets, but
This is all in a private round transaction. It's not public, but it still go through that.
private.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, you know what? By the way, the SEC is only after this project maybe listed, but they will go before, right? Before listed, who back and who say anything on public.
So you have to
Okay.
be careful what
Yes.
you say here.
You're saying too much now.
I mean,
Indeed. Okay.
Check your email right now. You might have it.
yeah, I mean, like, everybody please forget about deleting emails, this kind of.
Everybody who
If you don't anything, you can do it now. But if you got any notice, no, don't do it.
You noted. Wow. I'll touch on Korea a little bit. So it's actually a lot more egregious, and the regulators are very scary out there, but like under the ground. In general, retail taxes still not very clear. There's a lot of rumors that next year, all the listings for Upbit, everything else will be tightened up and regulated by the government. It won't be just done by Upbit. So I think the liquidity situation will change considerably as well. Just about everybody that's a major company, because we had a lot of scandals as well, WeMix and Clayton, all that good jazz. Everybody got subpoenaed, right? Following this Luna fiasco. So a lot of the corporates that, you know, are partnering with Polygon or Avalanche, whatever, a lot of them are actually getting cold feet. They're like waist deep in development, but then nobody wants to announce any major partnerships because they don't want to open up attack vectors. And you have to
Then what happened to those big corporates in Korea who originally partnered with Luna? What happened to those people?
The Luna partnership was okay. It's more like there was a game company called Wemix that made a couple of $1 billion, but then they minted more tokens and it's sold on the open market. Because I guess in the gaming world you can do that with like gaming gold and stuff like that, but you can't do that on an exchange. So that led to a bunch of, everybody associated with that was in trouble. A bunch of funds got money from them as LPs, they all got in trouble, so it's not as friendly as you think.
Yes, indeed. 2 years ago, women talked to us too.
Yes.
And we rejected.
Yes, and a
Very smart.
a very famous politician got advisor tokens from Wemix, and that ended up being like $6 or something million, and then nobody knows where he got it because no one's talking about it. So it's just creating a lot of tension. But keep in mind, Korean regulation governance is like Game of Thrones, right? It's literally like every president we've ever had in history went to jail. Top 10 families like Samsung, LG, 9 went to jail. So in Korea right now, the general sentiment is somebody has to take the blame for all this crypto thing, and then back to normal, right? But now we're playing like jail musical chairs right now. Yeah.
Wow, that's quite intensive. Yeah, because we invest in Clayton, right? I also know like Korean government is going after the boss of Kakao.
So they just announced a new CEO. She's awesome, by the way, but that probably means he's in trouble. Yeah. Keep that in mind. That was announced this morning.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow.
So actually, I want to share one interesting thing. So in the last couple of months, Japanese actually Ministry of Finance, the regulators, financial authority in Japan, actually interviewed a bunch of VCs like us that have investments in token assets. And the experience is a little bit different from what Richard did. They basically came up with a large number of questions and trying to figure out what they can do to deregulate investment in token area in Japan so that more international VCs will be willing to invest into Japanese Web3 projects. So I was actually quite surprised. Initially I thought, oh shit, we're gonna get questioned on a lot of nasty things. So actually it wasn't completely opposite. They're actually quite supportive. Just trying to figure out why aren't more international investors, such as yourselves, coming to Japan to invest in local Web3 projects. So I talked about some of the existing issues with the taxation and also reporting environment, not for VC investors like us, but to people like our LPs, big corporates. And they were saying, okay, and so we had a couple of rounds, and I believe they are now working on regulations to make VC investment more friendly in the Web3 areas, and also potentially changing some of the rules regarding domestic funds in Japan, which is currently not really allowed to hold token assets, which is why we're also not using a Japanese domestic vehicle to do such investments, but now they're thinking about addressing those issues. So it's quite friendly so far. Nobody mentioned jail so far.
I guess it's quite opposite, right? But yeah, I know like in Japan, it's quite friendly, but although it's very strict, I would say
friendly on surface, but regulations is still tough.
All right, so the next one is actually related to our first question. So, when Asia is opening up, but the Western world seems to be tightening up, right? So what's the relationship with, for crypto industry between West and East? For example, recent some settlements, some incidents. For example, CZ steps down, pay a huge fine, SEC going after a lot of projects. People are moving out, crypto people are moving out of San Francisco. What's funny is I'm moving, but yeah, I'm sure like Richard, Alex, and Akio, you guys have some insights about what's the sentiment right now, relationship with, between the West and the East.
I can set the stage a little bit. So, SBF was really monumental in bringing crypto to the regulatory frontiers, and that ripple effect still hasn't gone completely through. Right. I think it's pretty clear that regulators oscillate between overreacting and underreacting. And then when they looked at the donations that he had made, so much of it went to the Democratic Party. And I think the Democratic Party essentially got caught with the hand in the cookie jar. So they're just like, all right, kill it. So Gensler, there's documentation of him being relatively super friendly with crypto in the earlier days. There's emails of him doing this, but now he's just like full kill mode, right? And I think the US now, like especially like financially literate markets like European Union, America, they just see crypto as an asset class. So in many ways, it feels like they're trying to wash out like this unregulated Asian capital. I don't think like the BlackRocks of the world can run ETFs when Binance is still kind of the dominant player in the space. So they're like, let's wash out this sort of this sketchy non-KYC money, give it to Fidelity, JP Morgan, institutionalize this category. And and then Hong Kong sort of steps in, and China's strategy generally is like, the enemy of my enemy is a friend. And the ethos of Bitcoin was sort of like, F you American banks, right? Like the original genesis of that. So there's a little bit of that shift happening. But in general, from the protocol space, I got a call from every protocol in the world, because liquidity markets are tightening up, and Korea is about half of the world's liquidity today, mostly because there's no taxes for crypto. Everybody wants to weather this winter by doubling down on their marketing or campaigns for hires in Korea to just try to get past this category, and the chains are now consolidating as well. So I think that's kind of the US, Asia. But then I feel like Japan, and Asia's really big, so Japan, Southeast Asia, they're all playing a very different role here.
So I can talk about Japan. One of the very interesting things that I found out after COVID is that when I looked around in Tokyo, I see a lot of Chinese investors and Web3 entrepreneurs who are either officially or unofficially based in Tokyo. And I'm not talking about Jack Ma, I'm talking about people in the Web3 space. And so I think there's definitely inflow of people who are looking for a little bit more, perhaps crypto-friendly environment, but maybe also lifestyle included, and also some of the US project people are moving to Tokyo, and also some of the US funds like A16Z, who previously completely ignored Japan, now starting to show up. So we see some tidal shift.
But then all the Japanese founders are in Singapore and Dubai.
Yes. So we know something they don't know.
Exactly. Everything's missed.
Right, indeed. I do know there's a lot of Chinese entrepreneurs that move to Singapore and also Dubai, right? And not just like that. Also, we are the investor of Gemini and also Ledger. And I do know for this year they do pay the visit to Hong Kong and talk to Hong Kong government and try to build their footprint in Hong Kong. So we do see not just in the China. Of course, I come from Shanghai. I can speak for China. Those entrepreneurs for Web3, they move to Singapore, Hong Kong, and also even Dubai, right? But also some US and Europe companies that come to Asia.
Nice. All right. So I see the time is still there. We got like 2 more questions. So next one, let's talk about seems market is start picking up. It's not bull market yet for sure, but we see the momentum building. So with the recent market sentiment, how those big corporates, for example, like traditional Web2 companies, maybe game company, maybe just venture builders. So how they react to this kind of market sentiment?
So what's interesting, I want to start with Japan corporate because I think we're a little bit slow, I think, in Japan. So I think when the rest of the world already had kind of a end of last cycle, people in Japan were just getting to Web3. So there was kind of a delayed effect, I think. So the boom came to Japan. Actually, a lot of that came after the last boom cycle for most of us ended. And that's still actually going on a little bit in Japan. So even as in this market today, some of the major corporates, say in the gaming world, say Sega is actually bringing their big Three Kingdoms Sango title to blockchain. And also some of our traditional big names like Square Enix is now bringing a Web3 version of their one of their top titles, King Arthur. And so we see actually those large game companies, they've been actually playing in this space for a little while, but they previously only did small titles, but now they're bringing big titles. And there's something bizarre, like Japan's, one of Japan's national airlines, ANA, has been very bullish on metaverse. And they actually hired former producer of Final Fantasy, and he's got a company. And they're creating actually metaverse and doing a TV ads on it, which is, to me, I feel like I'm in a bizarre land. But so these things are actually happening, and that seems to be that at least in Japan, the big corporates, not people who are usually far away from crypto world, are now trying to adopt. And even Toyota has a team that's focused on actually stablecoin. There's a stablecoin team in Toyota, and most of the major banks have some sort of stablecoin initiative, and including Mitsubishi UFJ Bank, they have a private chain stablecoin project going on. So I think there's a lot going on. Then something a little more cutting edge. So in Japan, we have Tokyo Stock Exchange and Osaka Stock Exchange. And Osaka Stock Exchange used to have something called JASDAQ, which is Japan's version of NASDAQ, but that got merged into Tokyo. So they kind of lost cutting edge stuff. So now they applied and got licensed to do token-based equity market. So and it's actually legalized. Right now there's no company listed, but Osaka is planning to have ways for companies to use token to list. I'm not sure how this is going to work, but it's happening by people who actually has been running traditional equity exchanges.
I think maybe 2 years ago, Koreans are trading more on Upbit than our national stock exchange.
Really?
And we have never looked back since. So if Japan wants to see what happens, token trading becomes the last come to Korea. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess what you mentioned is more like a security exchange, right?
Security exchange,
Right.
no crypto
Sounds
exchange. Yeah.
People talking about that since 5 years ago,
Yeah.
even ourselves, institution promote that. The reason just because we are primary market venture capital, so we do have a lot of equity. There's no liquidation. So we like security exchange token.
And I've talked to the regulators. I think the longer term plan is to have some kind of bridge between this new kind of token-based equity exchange to the traditional equity exchange, so that the companies can perhaps, when they're young, list in Osaka. When they grow up, move up to Tokyo and create some kind of upgrade path.
So just to double down on the whole corporate thing, Korean corporates were all in on crypto 2017-18. So we're maybe a couple of years ahead of you, but we have much less infrastructure to play with. In general, I think they've come to the realization that post-Axie, there was an opportunity to raise cheap capital. Because everybody that's interested in crypto from a corporate perspective, or the ones that are distribution dependent, that's your game companies, your entertainment, right, your et cetera, because about 30-50% of their balance is just marketing budget. So can we give users quote unquote ownership to reduce acquisition cost was the theory. But in general, at least the ones I've talked to, they on paper it seems to make sense, but no one's really figured out the model, right? There's always a clash between intrinsic motivation, right? Can we actually get these things to scale? I think Xpla, which is one of the biggest gaming companies, they recently launched a game, got a couple 100,000 users, they turned on yield, and then as an experiment, they turned off yield, and then their retention went to 0, not even 0.1. So now they're learning that in crypto, yield is good for attention, but really bad for retention. And we're seeing this time and time again in all DeFi, GameFi, etc.
That's a good quote.
Thank you. I've been studying. Yeah.
Right. There's something that I can share is that I guess we're talking about enterprise adoption, say Web 2 to Web 3. And I do know I am an angel investor of a project called Waterfall, and the CEO of Waterfall actually was former CEO of Ethereum Enterprise Alliance. So they do a lot of years work, but indeed they fail because XYZ reason, right? Because the protocol is not efficient, blah blah, and those enterprises don't want to adopt. But that's majorly for U.S. market. And come back to China, you just mentioned about the gaming, right? Of course, gaming is so big, huge market, and I do know, not just GameFi like 2 years ago, but for the coming year, I do know there's some big gaming company in China as well, not just Korea and Japan, right? They do have assembled the huge fund and trying to pop out the GameFi market again in next year. So that's one way Web 2 to Web 3.
Within China or outside of China?
In China, by the way. No, I mean, though the company is China company, but of course it's for South Asia market. That's one thing. And second, you guys may know, right? The payment system, the payment ecosystem is so mature in China. So there are a lot of Web 2 companies like Tencent, like Alibaba. Those payment guys, they also start up their own company and try to facilitate those transaction payment ecosystem by using the blockchain technology. Again, that's also focused on South Asia market. So that's what I can do see, what I do observe for this year.
Nice. I mean, STO, the security token, we've been talking about it maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and then it was too tough, right? The entry barrier is just too high. But now we have a new approach. Tell me about RWA, real world assets. I mean, it's pretty much,
I think it's just USD, man. I think it's USDT stablecoin. That is our WA at the moment. Yeah, I think everything else is going to take a little bit too long. I do want to share, the one quote that kept me in Asia is the promise of crypto is incentive, right? And I think the American bias is an interesting thing to bet against. They look at India like a DAU farm. They look at Southeast Asia like low LTV. I don't really think crypto has DAU or LTV. I think we have believers who are now buyers, maybe consumers become collectors, right? And there's only two ways money enters a poor country. It's remittance or aid. Sounds very crypto to me, right? Something earn airdrops, right? But no one's really figured out the jurisdictional strategy. I look at Indonesia, like, instead of building infrastructure, does it make sense that maybe someday there might be a $20 billion network that brings an incredible amount of wealth into the country, right? And when I look at Japan, top 10 IPs in the world, 6 are Japanese. Will there be an IPO market at some point, right? Because with the exception of Disney Marvel, no one's really capturing their IP upside, right? And crypto is, in ways, a mechanism to launch markets, and communities matter because markets matter, right? So there's something really interesting happening in Asia, but it's a little bit fragmented. I haven't figured out how to lasso it all together, right?
That'll be very interesting. So yeah, since time is there, let's have the last question here. So we know a lot of builders, founders among the audience. So how about let's just use one line to give some advices to those builders and founders. How can they benefit? What should they do in this kind of market sentiment, especially leverage? Asia, crypto is opening up, is uprising. So my suggestion, my advice is, builders, please work very closely with your investors, especially your early stage investors, because all the speakers here, we are at the frontier of the battlefield, so we know what's happening right now, what's the latest narrative. So work very closely, ask for a lot of resources, a lot of help from your investors, because we don't know you need help. But if you reach out, we'll help, right? Most of us. So just one line, please. Akio-san, or?
Yeah, I think my one line would be, right now it's a very tricky market, but we always find that people who are focused on building the user base, community around what they're doing, they always survive. But people who are just focused just on investors and our attention and ignoring the user community, these projects usually fail in a bear market like this. So I have a opposite advice for you. Ignore us, work with your users.
Right, I would more agree, Akoi-san, because I can give you one very typical example. Today we have a sponsor like Sui, right? So I just using layer 1 as example. So you can see a lot of layer 1 was the pool backed up by big capital. And there are some layer 1, you don't know the name. They only back up by community. All the donation, the funds only from community. And you can just go to CoinMarketCap to compare their growth. I don't mention the name, but I do know it happening. Because everything needs to be built by community. Because it's 不知道, right? It's 道. It needs to be contributed by everybody, not just by even an angel investor institution. Only one no, one simple no. Not much we can do, by the way. To be honest, yes.
Well, since you guys said the nice obvious things, I'll say the more egregious thing. I think the problem with crypto is crypto people. And then if it's not money, it's not crypto. The only thing you can do with crypto is more crypto, right? So in that light, what's profitable and what's real aren't essentially correlated. And until now, price action was product and market cap was marketing, right? And we can assume that maybe that game is over. So I encourage you guys to build something for the users and lean into it. Crypto is a culture, and monetizing culture is a lot of what crypto is. So if you're a very crypto person, go hard right that way. If you're more of a Web2 consumer, I think now is an interesting market. That's 280 million ETH wallets now. there's something you can build for that audience. And there, you know, like Bugatti did something with Ordinals recently. Like, why is Bugatti doing? I think they're beginning to realize that maybe their future customers are going to be the Bitcoin millionaires, right? So there's something about maybe not having 100 million users. Maybe it's having 10,000 users who are a bunch of millionaires, right? So there's something interesting happening on this side of the fence as well. So definitely build for the people.
Yeah.
Hey, you just said the same thing.
I know.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love community projects. You know, it's the best. Just consider those community contributors. You know, people in the community is your investors as well. So, founders should work very closely with them, right? So yeah, very good conversation today. Let's give a round of applause to our speakers. Thank you. And that's about it. Thank you.